Hello, non-Western art appreciation class. I hope you're doing fantastically well. Today we'll be talking about East and South Africa, the southern aspect, which we really haven't talked about as much. There's less art because we often start off with nomadic cultures, very agrarian cultures that show up. But to give you some of my life expectancy that shows up and experiences, I'm fairly fluent in Swahili. And so I hope that all of you are doing very well within the process. And so this is the language that we actually have. It's sometimes referred to as the Swahili Coast. So here's me on set of a woman of actually Queen of Katwe, and that's Lupita Nyong'o right there, if you know Lupita from Us and various others, Black Panther. Here's a Maasai school where I taught while I was there. There's UN Somali refugees actually in Nairobi, or just outside of Nairobi, Kenya. And here's our Maasai neighbors that we were living with. It's my daughter, who is now off to college, break my heart, and my wife, who is that brainiac that I told you about at FIU in the psychology department, bringing children's mental health services into underserved communities throughout the world, particularly in Chicago and Miami, and now working in some aspects of Los Angeles as well. As we look at the area, it's not just Africa. We'll be looking at this: Uganda, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, all the way down to South Africa. So really it is this region that we have not covered yet in Africa so far. And I think I've shown you this image at least once before about my house, just to show you, now you really do get the idea of the dry scrubland that happened to be. So here's where I live inside of Masai Mara National Park, which is just north of the Serengeti. And here's some lovely individuals that were willing to help me repair my home, actually even build my home with a thatch, mud, and daub before the summer rains came. And there's my pet giraffe, Gerald. So when I was in East Africa, I worked in very poor slum communities where we have kind of urbanization that's taking place that happened very much along the lines in the Western world, like in London, Paris, during the Industrial Revolution. A lot of East Africa is going through that Industrial Revolution now. And then you have the very kind of, this is a YMCA flat. So that was my flat when I was staying at the YMCA. And yet I would go into one of the largest slum communities in all of Nairobi, was Kibera. And of course, the Maasai wedding, which we talked about, how different people have common concerns, but very different responses based upon what is going on within their life and their expectancy. When I first visited the Maasai for the first time, I was given a drink of this, which is milk that came from the cow, and then at the same time, a little bit of splash of blood for iron, and they mix it together. And the warmness and the uncoagulated, it's one of the first times, one of the only times I've ever not been able to, when I've traveled, keep down something. And so I had to remind myself the next time that I saw them that I would like it bilimiziwa, basically the idea without milk, referencing the fact that I might be allergic to it. We talked about the female initiation ceremony and how you actually become a woman in Africa. So this is taking place before the crack of dawn when people are brought in. So this is from South Africa. Well, from Eastern and South Africa, I should say. You see how everyone is electric and excited. So watch a little bit of this video as well when we talk about initiation in Africa. Traditionally, they would do this every year, but now they generally do it every couple of years. So you'll have different girls in different age grades that come back covered in blankets. Now they're fully fledged women, and there's a celebration and dance. It used to be that they would be gone anywhere from 6 months to a year, where they were trained to become a woman. Now sometimes they're only gone 4 to 6 weeks. And in some areas of the world, remember, they come back where fattening houses. You see how proud the families are, because they have basically become adults. They have left the world of the childhood. She's going to learn how to master, or not master, the spirit world. She's going to learn cooking and cleaning, the gender roles that are there, how to be a good mother, a good wife. And we just don't have a tradition like this in the Western world, where we actually send you off and teach you how to be a man or how to be a woman. Now there's a traditional ceremony, because the girls were also taught how to dance when they were out there as well. So you could consider this almost like at the end of your high school graduation, we assume that you're an adult at that period. At least legally, we assume that you're adult. And the area then we're looking at is this area, you know, in Tanzania, we have this, see the lighter green here, you have savanna grasslands that literally where the large animals, and so this is where people go on safaris, and individuals, Jen, like the Maasai here, live in what we would consider primitive houses. Most houses don't have electricity or running water. And yet when we go there, they are generally much happier, right? They live in the community amongst their friends and their peers. They're out in nature, the elders and their ancestors. And many of the individuals, at least the older individuals that live there, don't really want to be incorporated into the new modern economy. They're perfectly happy living out there, their lives being what we would consider more isolated individual, but also much closer to their families. Many of the younger generation have seen tourists and individuals coming to see their lovely animals in the Serengeti, the Masai Mara, if you're farther north in Kenya or in Uganda, and they want more of what the Western world has to offer, with all the problems, with all the hard work that goes into it, but they are willing to risk that. So we have a battle of modernity versus tradition that's taking place. One group that really is, I'm trying to figure out where they fit in the modern world still, is the Kalahari-San Bushmen. These are an individual that we used to say, even 100 years ago, were a pre-literate culture. They were a prehistoric culture. They really didn't have reading and writing in certain areas of this part, specifically of Namibia and of Botswana. They have since started to incorporate that in, and a lot of that has to be enforced by their national governments. So the Kalahari-San Bushmen are very odd by modern day standards because they are a group that is completely egalitarian. Elders make the decisions. Hunter-gatherers to farmers is what they do. The women own the water, the men own the meat. It's an egalitarian society. Births basically happen every 4 years because of water shortages. And so you literally have to wait to be in that cycle for birth to where you make sure you have access to water. They believe in an absolute gift economy, and this keeps people close with one another as they offer gifts and precious goods of what they can make to each other. Insects make up almost 10% of their protein impact. There's not a lot of meat, and when the meat is here with any cattle they have, it's very close to subsistence agriculture. There's very little for them to survive on. They very much are happy to thank the animal spirits if they kill an animal after they die to provide food and sustenance for them. So we see them on large open. Now, the Kalahari is one of the larger deserts in the world. So they're really living right on the desert, and you get these mirage images. They're still starting fire by hand using sticks, and they live in these circular crawls. So a very different lifestyle. Their artwork is primarily portable. And if you look at them, their most famous artwork is actually still rock paintings. Remember, we had this all the way back in the prehistoric world, going back 22,000 years ago. This is still their dominant art form. They're living as close as we can imagine to anything from the primitive world that we have. So one of the things that's challenging then is Botswana has implemented a relocation policy aiming to move the Bushmen out of this ancestral land on the Central Kalahari Game Reserve to newly created settlements since the 1990s. So we've just looked at their life. Now look at what the Botswana government wants to do and one of the challenges that shows up. See how the house is just open to the elements. They basically live and work off of everything within the forest themselves. This is about as non-urban as you possibly can have.
Asquare comes abam, Baha Coco, Asquare comes Baha Conha. Ari, come again, go last high. That's not the cave. Central am home for them. I'm home with Ikawa Musula. I'm more happy to go back to them. I'm Maumo, I don't back to them and tell you home. Oh, right now, I send it to your father. I do go to one a hat to have. I'm gonna buy more community for them and one. I hope you find some more and then some more too. Give me some more to the hamburger. You thinking or hamburger, coaching a high touch on a giant car. I'll be high touch. When I go through UK, I see a lot of hopeless faces. People who are here, we are undergoing a lot of change and we are losing our way of life.
Itakuwa te kochi, akai, itago, itikogu, itatawa, okogu. Majira kwa kochi anchi tau, ya kwa amatu, ya tamu tosu, dabisa, ya sakho, wache sataka, kakuna baha tosa kochi kamutu. Ya tutawa masi aja kochi acha kahina, tiwa tiri tau, ya juya, hati tau. Ya sankam, ya sankam, ya sankam, ikhlas saya. Kaka ya tokusa, iteba, iteko pai kula hati.
Sama.
Wai ke hata, kam kisumbu.
If you lose your land, then who are you? It's upon us, the youth, to find out who we really want to be. At a young age, I lost my parents. I realized that it was upon me, to become responsible for myself. Education is my future. The 101 thing is there's certain engineer learn in an engineering school. So I'm trying to learn what he learned.
Guys, if you can come to the teacher's table, that's the light emitting diode. And you know that if you don't connect it accordingly, it doesn't light. So if you stop these connections, it should light. All right?
My dream is to see myself next year, either at the US, Canada, or the UK study for my engineering degree. Some people still believe that the Bushmen are primitive, subhuman beings, people that belong in the bush, hunting and gathering, incapable of understanding complex issues. I just want to prove to them that, this is totally wrong.
Alors, Akima Toropo Joko, Akona Koi Kamka, Pukana Coins, Kona Kenyan. My take of the Capifuni, the Luton, Quasi Queen from the sky. The Luton Qatar, keep on time. Yang job I'm talking about it. Yang juga dia mau aku. Atau kamu pun kan sama kamu aku kira gua ni saya tahu. Anu tahu ni sih. Atau tu cuma satu orang ni kau tahu dah pun tahu dah lah. Atau tadi kata kami tahu mereka kau tahu satu sama. Atau kau tahu dah tahu lah. Kau biar tahu tak. Tapi ada apa aku tahu kau ya tahu. Kau apa yang kasih. Hai kau ada tahu hai yo sam. Kau ada yang kalau kau sih. Kawan-kawan gaya dulu tuh ada kok kakak. Wah aku jadi kawan-kawan. Dah kawan-kawan ngajar. Gimana? Masa penting ini penting. My mom passed away a few days after my dad. People were sure if I was gonna survive or not. Some of them were saying, "No, just bury him with his mom." Sometimes I wonder how it makes you have parents, a person, doctor, someone who would understand what you're trying to say, someone who would care about your dreams. Here's my eyes, the bold and big eyes. And see myself on here.
responsibility is to ensure that she'll live a decent life. I have to make sure that I protect her. I provide her with all the basic needs that she will require. Food, clothing, and also just, love. Just love her. So that she can feel that, what, I have a father who cares about me. Isi amba sika mati zitingaye. Kurke no da kwani koma 9 to 16 kg la.
This is Ketelelo's file. You have to write essays, your story, and all these huge financial documents. Total income, $347 per annum. With your UK applications, where did you get offers?
From the University of York.
York. And what grade did they say you had to get?
1A and 2B.
A and 2Bs. Right. So it's fantastic to get offers, isn't it? It's just the money. So that's why we decided to put your application forward to MasterCard. Okay, so that you could find funding somewhere else. Yeah. It's out of your hands, but what is in your hands is what you do in the exams. You don't want to drop a B to a C, because otherwise then it's all been all for nothing.
I felt overwhelmed, but we didn't put pressure on ourselves. Then we get to put pressure on me. There's no one out there to tell me what to do and what not to do in order to pass.
Good morning, students. You are now under exam conditions. Do not open the exam booklet until I tell you to do so.
I went into the exam with the greatest motivation. I've done my level best. So let's read it.
Hey, come on, dude. Come on. Come on. No, what? No, what? Come on. Tonton. Soin qu'on doit dire à ça. Muito calma. هذا توك square come Tom. 제가 그래서 거의 좀 가까이다 하나 다 거의 다 talizia kwa kalwa kwa kisma oi ikayo hariko filtrar moya kati kwa trupu kwa an bereka ura kana siwa mtu wangu ya kaul kwa
Hi, how are you? So we're checking your decisions, yeah?
yes
I'm gonna find it there. Hey! Well done. Read it out. Read it out.
Congratulations, we are delighted to tell you that we have been selected for the fall 2015 Mastercard Foundation Scholarship Program at Michigan State University.
We welcome you to embrace this life-changing opportunity.
Yes.
Life-changing. Will be, won't it?
Yeah.
Have you ever been on a plane? Exciting, eh?
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh! Ah! I will. Oh! See that's never. Like you. I called my aunt, and one of the guys, he said something that I didn't want to do then. Is this the guy that people wanted to bury alive in St. Kitchen? And she said yes. So life is a miracle. Maybe she would say
spent enough of my early childhood. And, but I understand that. I hope she would understand that I didn't go there to have fun. I got the scholarship to go there to put our future on my track.
najua kwa mata ya kwa mata kimi aita kimo we hakuri keme kama kwa hai ngaka takwa
May I have your attention, please, ladies and gentlemen. This is a final announcement for everyone that we will see this tomorrow.
And so, of course, the question that comes up here is that what is to be done? Ensemble is because they are owned, because the national government owns the land, and they declared this a national park, even though the Bushmen have lived there for generations. Is this a human rights abuse? You know, is there something we can say about this being a human rights abuse that the United Nations or other individuals should get along? Because the Bushmen actually lived there in harmony and peace, and they're being moved out, even though it is their historic homeland. So this becomes a real issue in the modern day world. I mean, think about the way the Native Americans still talk about their land today. And most of the Native Americans don't even live on land that was actually their ancestral homeland, right? They were moved almost exclusively moved farther westward away from their homeland, trying to break those bonds with the land. They found new bonds with the new land. And so it's a challenge that we have all throughout the world when we do have these indigenous populations, whether it's Papua New Guinea, the Aborigines, in the outback, or in Botswana. So it really is one of those things that unfortunately is heartbreaking. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day. Bye.